Hi friends, welcome to Wildish Living, where we talk about decor, vintage, handmade, and creating a space that you love. Today I'm going to be talking about using vintage items in your decor. We're going to talk about where you can find these things and what to look for when shopping for them. Why should we use vintage? It's a great way to bring warmth and texture into your space. It's definitely way more interesting than buying mass-produced items from big box stores. It has a story and a history and brings texture to a room. We all know that it's better for the environment. It produces less waste. It uses things that we already have that exist in the world, so much better for us and our environment. Most likely it was created by a craftsman of the time that used a skill that is no longer used in today's society. A lot of those superior craftsmanship skills have been lost along the way, and things we know are not made the way they used to be. Using vintage also gives us a connection to the past and possibly our ancestors. And I love to mix vintage with a modern decor. I think just the juxtaposition of the old versus the new just adds so much character and depth to your decor that you need to have at least a few pieces in every room. And I think it just really sets it off. My tip though is to only use a couple items here and there in your rooms, and what you don't want to do is fill your entire space with purely vintage and antique pieces, because that's when I think you run the risk of having your space look like more of a museum. So I think it's better when you just sprinkle it in, or you use it selectively, use some vintage pieces here and there. And you mix it in with some modern, newer finds. I just think it makes the vintage items look that much more special, and they really stand out in your space. So where can you find vintage items? The first place you might go that should be accessible to pretty much everyone is secondhand or thrift stores. Most cities and even small towns, you're going to find your Value Village, your Goodwill, your Salvation Army, and probably some smaller independent boutiques, where if you have the time, you can definitely sift through the shelves in these secondhand stores, and there are definitely treasures to be found if you have the time and patience to go through and look through everything. It's always hit or miss. You're not always guaranteed to find something. It's the thrill of the find, thrill of the hunt, I guess you would say, that I love when going into thrift stores and seeing if you can find any treasures there that are, either worth something in value or just something special that you love the look of. So definitely, if you have time, check out your nearest thrift store or secondhand store and see what kind of vintage treasures you can find in there to add to your space. The next place you can go to find vintage and antiques are antique shops, antique markets, antique malls, where they have individual vendors set up booths all under one roof, and then you can go and shop all these vendor booths. And the nice thing about these antique shops and markets and malls is that these have already been curated for you. So the owners have already gone out and found all these beautiful vintage pieces, and they've curated it all together in one space, so it makes it a lot easier for you to find and pick the items that you really love that you want to add to your space. A lot of these booth owners will have themes, so you might see some booths that have like a period theme, maybe a mid-century modern or Victorian or Art Deco. And sometimes that makes it really easy for you to find stuff. If there is a vintage period where you really love the look of those items, it's easy to go find that booth that carries specifically those items. A lot of them just have a variation of pieces from all different time periods, and it's really fun to go through and see all of the vintage and antique items, and it's fun to get a little nostalgic. You're going to find things that maybe you used when you were a child or that your grandmother had that you remember seeing. It's just a nice day to get out either by yourself or with some friends or family and spend a day going to antique shops and just looking around and seeing what speaks to you, what you feel like you need to bring home to add to your space. So I definitely recommend hitting up your local antique market or antique mall and spending some time you know, meandering the aisles to see what treasures you might find there. Another great source for finding vintage is Etsy. If anyone hasn't heard of Etsy, it's an online marketplace where individuals can set up a shop and they create listings to sell products. Now, it was started as a handmade marketplace, but they also allow vintage sellers on there. So it is a great place to go and source vintage items, especially if you know what you're looking for, where you can put it in the search. Say you're looking for a sugar bowl of a certain kind, you can put that in and up will pop all the vintage sugar bowls in the style that you're looking for. Maybe you don't know what you want, you can go in and do more of a vague search, but you would be surprised at the beautiful pieces that are available to buy on Etsy. So you would purchase online and then that shop owner would then mail you the item. And it's a great, great, great source for shopping if you can't get out to any stores. Maybe there's nothing near you where you can go and shop. It's great to sit in your own house and do your shopping that way. I know we've all got accustomed to shopping online these days. So I highly recommend you checking out Etsy and searching what vintage items they have available on there for you to use. Another place to find vintage and antiques is at auctions, whether they are in person or online. You'll have to check out, I guess, Google what's available in your area, depending if you're in Canada or United States, what's available to you. I don't find a lot of in-person auctions in Canada. I think that in the States they might be a little more widely available. There are some online auctions such as Max Sold, which we have here in Canada. I'm not sure if that's available in the States at this point, but definitely search online and see what kind of auctions are available either in person or online in your area, and you're sure to find some treasures there as well. Another great place to find vintage is estate sales, garage sales, and flea markets. Garage sales are available in everyone's area. Estate sales, not so much in Canada. We don't get a lot. I know in the States that you guys have a lot of in-person estate sales where people are clearing out their home and you can go in and choose what you like. I know there's lots of other channels here where I've seen people going to estate sales and finding some amazing vintage pieces, and I'm super jealous of that. We don't get that a lot here in Canada, but definitely if you're in the States, check out estate sales in your local area. Garage sales everywhere you go, like I said, and also if there's any flea markets in your neighborhood, that's where you're sure to find some interesting things as well. So make sure you check out what's going on in your neighborhood or your area. Maybe it's, you know, not something that's not too far away. You can make a little day trip out of and check something out in the next town over, or the next city near where you live. But definitely check out flea markets, estate sales, and garage sales. The last way that you might get vintage items is passed down from your family. You might inherit some heirlooms from family members or even friends that have passed on beautiful pieces to you that you love and treasure. Maybe your grandparents have passed down some furniture or some special decor pieces that they've always had, or maybe they are some collections of things and you were lucky enough to receive these items passed down to you. I know I've got some beautiful pieces of mid-century teak furniture that I received from my grandmother, and I love them so much. You can see my shelves in the background here. That's a big set that she used to have in her living room. And I also have some mid-century armchairs, which I love, that are in my living room, as well as some smaller items as well that I usually decorate with. I know sometimes we don't appreciate the beautiful pieces that our grandparents or whoever might have had in their house when we were younger. We think of it as old junk that's not in style. But I think as you get older, you look back and you start to appreciate what these pieces are, and you start to realize that how special they are to have in your space. So definitely that is a beautiful source of getting vintage items if you're lucky enough to have someone that's passed you down some beautiful pieces. When you're shopping for vintage items, what you want to make sure when you're choosing pieces is that you're checking them over for anything that might be wrong with them. You're looking for any signs of damage, any chips, any cracks, any broken parts. tears, stains. You want to really inspect these pieces. You don't want to surprise when you get home and realize that you can't actually use it, or it's in worse shape than you thought and it's not going to last that long, or you have to be really, really careful with something. Especially if you're spending a little bit of money on something, you want to know that it's in decent shape. A lot of items can be cleaned, so if something's just a bit dirty, it's really easy to clean. A lot of things like pottery, glass, wood, metal, these things can be cleaned up pretty easily. If it's something that has textiles on it, most of it can be cleaned, but sometimes if it's a textile, it might be really delicate and you might not be able to clean it without ruining it. So I wouldn't get anything that has too many big stains or anything on it if it's on fabric or textile. If small stains here and there, you might be able to get it out with some gentle cleansers, but just know ahead of time that if you're willing to put any work into it to fix it up a little bit, if it's still worth purchasing, or maybe move on and wait till you find something that's in a little bit better condition. Don't forget to choose items that you love and bring you joy and that you want to look at in your space all the time. Don't worry about if it's a trendy piece or someone else thinks you should buy it. Only buy what you love and what brings you joy, and that will really help you decide whether you want to purchase a piece or not. And it's okay to mix styles. You can have a little bit of mid-century with a little bit of Art Deco, or maybe a little bit of Victorian. I think it's okay to mix and match as long as maybe the colors or the textures kind of bring it together. And sometimes that eclectic mix makes a space even more interesting, so don't be afraid to mix your styles up. As long as you love it, it's going to work in your space. And if you got some value out of this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps me to create more content for this channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Wildish Living. Bye!